what's black and blue and dead all over. This is a powder keg. And prisoners to match.
So, take it easy, sweetheart.
I've been trying to reach you. Out of the dark!
If this continues, it won't be long before you've nothing left.
I don't care what happens to me.
You're not so different. Who are you under there?
I'm vengeance.
For some reason, Batman just always stood out. It's one of the major characters of the 20th century, and so many people connect to it on such a deep level and for so many different reasons. The first conversation I had with Matt about it, I just knew there was something radically different from anything we'd seen in Batman movies before.
I felt that we'd seen lots of origin stories. We'd seen things go further and further into fantasy. And I thought, well, one place we haven't been is grounding it the way that Year One does, to come right in to a young Batman, not be an origin tale, but refer to his origins and shake into his core.
Right from the beginning, there's a desperation to it. He's really working out this rage. All the fights seem very personal.
What's so wonderful about this world is the exploration of the gray area. Catwoman really wants to fight for those who don't have someone else to fight for them. And that's where Batman and her really connect.
He wants to inflict his kind of justice. He's just compelled to do it. There is no other option.
Welcome back, everyone. This is my new Batman trailer video. They released another new trailer with slightly different footage, and then even more footage and behind the scenes with Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, all talking about the movie, what the story is about, and about their characters. So we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. There's still a couple of big DC fandom trailers for the upcoming movies that I'm working on that'll post in the next day or so. But just starting at the beginning of this and working our way through shot by shot. So this is a very different version of the trailer with a couple different scenes, mostly focusing on the Riddler's big riddles, like the two big riddles that you see in the trailer. He repeats the riddle, what's black and blue and dead all over, recut with slightly different footage for different context, focusing more on footage of Batman himself in a bunch of different scenes in different parts of the film. And I think this footage sort of confirms my theory about what this riddle is all about. That the answer to the riddle is Batman himself. He's talking about Batman himself because physically he's black and blue, like his body is broken. You see all the scars on his back, but he's also kind of dead inside as a person. And also sort of backing this up, a lot of people think that the Riddler is also saying after this, it's you, in a really creepy kind of way, like confirming that he is talking about Batman as if he's answering his own riddle. Either way, the trailer really wants you to think that the answer to the riddle is Batman himself. This is a scene of the Riddler banging the walls inside his prison cell, if you couldn't tell. The way they cut this trailer, they're very careful not to give you like a full frontal picture of the Riddler's face. You only see him with his mask on, with the glasses on top of the mask, like his Zodiac-looking costume. And when he doesn't have his mask on, you only see him from behind, or you see like a side shot of his head. If you didn't remember, it's Paul Dano playing the Riddler, so we all know what Paul Dano looks like, so it's not a big surprise. Everything that the producers, the people behind the movie, Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson are talking about, talk about them doing a Batman story, playing up all the horror elements behind the character that you see in some of the darker comics. So it's sort of like a darker version of a Batman trilogy that they're working on. And in service of that, obviously I've made the references to the Zodiac Killer inspiring this version of the Riddler, but there are people who have claimed to have been to test screenings confirming some of these theories that the Riddler in the movie is kind of a Jigsaw type of character. Like, if you remember the Saw movies, Jigsaw creates all these different traps that are meant to kill different people in very karmic ways, very twisted karmic ways. And all the people that he puts in these traps are people who committed crimes in real life. So the Riddler's kind of doing the same thing in the movie, where all the different people that he's killing are corrupt people. They're either like really legit criminals like mobsters, or they're corrupt government officials like the mayor that he kills at the beginning of the trailer. This is also backed up by that giant riddle that you see Batman walking around in. Like you see him without his shirt on, walking into the middle of the question mark here with all these lines extending out to these different names. And they're different people that I've talked about in my last trailer video, so I'll link that at the end of this and down in the description below. But the idea is that the Riddler creates all these different traps. Batman has to solve them or these different people will die. Like all the different times that we've seen that footage of the mayor's funeral with the person who walks up there with a message to Batman and a bomb that goes off. So if you see people talking about this Batman movie, if it's kind of like a Saw version of a Batman movie and Riddler's kind of like Jigsaw, that's what that means. So when you see that scene of him with the red flare from overhead, and it looks really badass, and you see all those people behind him, that's him going to investigate one of the other traps that the Riddler has set, and these other people behind him are a bunch of the police officers. Little more clarification on this Riddler trap too. So when it says Savage here, some of you also pointed out that Pete Savage is actually the name of the current police commissioner before Gordon at the beginning of the movie, so I think it's also implied that he is on the take with Carmine Falcone or he is corrupt in some way. And Sins of the Father might also be a reference to Thomas Wayne in the comics saving Carmine Falcone's life once, in that creating this sort of association between the Wayne family and Carmine Falcone. They're only adapting some aspects of The Long Halloween, but they get into that at the beginning of The Long Halloween, with Carmine not knowing that Bruce Wayne is Batman, but trying to get Bruce Wayne, really rich person, to put a lot of his money in mob-controlled banks. And there's some of you that think that Renewal is a Lie might have something to do with the Gotham City orphanage during the events of the film. When you see the footage of him at the mayor's funeral outside as Bruce Wayne, just wearing the normal clothes, standing next to his car there, the old classic Corvette, Gordon has voiceover dialogue that says, "This is a powder keg." Then they cut in Batman answering him saying, "Riddler is the match." That's just a reference to the current state of Gotham with what the Riddler is doing, trying to incite people live streaming one of his killings to set things off, like killing the mayor. So it sounds like during the movie, the public is aware of the ticking clock, the game that he's playing with Batman, and all the potential victims that will die if Batman isn't successful in saving them and solving the different riddles. Would you like to play a game, Batman? This is new footage of Catwoman following Batman through the graveyard to one of the entrances of the Batcave, it seems like. I do love the idea that one of the entrances to the Batcave takes him through the graveyard. Very on brand for Batman. And if you didn't see some of the other behind the scenes or you didn't notice this small detail, his Batcave during the movie is actually in an abandoned subway terminal, but it's the Wayne Terminus. So it's an abandoned subway terminal that was built by one of his ancestors at some point. Remember, the Waynes were actually one of the founding families of Gotham that go back hundreds and hundreds of years. There's other footage of Catwoman watching him just beat the life out of a criminal, like she's kind of afraid of him, like, oh my god, what's going on here? The idea during this movie, and I talked about this in my last video, is that he doesn't really distinguish between Batman and Bruce Wayne. There's no playboy Bruce Wayne persona where he goes in and acts like a rich fool to throw people off the scent, so they don't think that he might be Batman. During the events of this movie, this early in his career, year 2, he has no interest in being Bruce Wayne. He only wants to be Batman. So I think the idea is that during the majority of the film, he will be in the Batman costume or doing Batman things. You will see like very little footage of him actually being Bruce Wayne running around at night. When they're looking at the page with all the different versions of the Batman symbol, you'll actually notice if you slow this down and you actually read the text, this is Batman's diary that he's been keeping. It's in his handwriting, and it's a journal that he's been keeping while he was creating the Batman character, everything about his life and what he's doing right now. Because they actually had to create this for the film, like it actually exists now, maybe they'll publish a version of it as part of an art book for the movie next year at some point. Then you have Matt Reeves talking about wanting to do a Batman Year 1 kind of movie without actually having to do a Year 1 movie, thus he makes it Year 2. Then Robert Pattinson talking about why Batman is so hardcore during the events of the movie. The reason why his fights are so personal is just his desperation, dealing with his own personal trauma and just projecting that onto all the criminals that he's going after every night. Like while he's talking about this, they also splice in separate footage of a fight scene with him beating a criminal with a baseball bat, like he's beating him with an inch of his life. There's a whole bunch of new Catwoman footage, more of their early fight scene when he catches her at a crime scene. This is right out of The Long Halloween. This footage of Gordon kicking open the door seems like it's inside the cemetery and he's kicking open the door to some family's mausoleum. There's also footage of Batman taking Gordon in his Batman costume into his garage where he keeps all of his cars. Like you see all these super expensive classic cars sitting around. Then this last scene of him in the rain is the trailer scene that we've all seen a billion times of him saying, "I'm vengeance." But if you spotted any other really cool Easter eggs in this brand new footage that I didn't talk about during the video, just write them below in the comments. There'll be more trailers later this year, early next year as well. The movie's coming out in March. Speaking of versions of Batman, I just did a video for the Flash movie trailer. You can click here to watch that, and click here for my other new Batman trailer video. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.